I now look to Mark Baum to close the case for the proposition.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the invitation to participate in your great and long tradition of civil discourse. I'm also glad I didn't have to follow this gentleman. I'm here to assure you all that what you feel in your heart is true, and that is that Big Pharma does in fact prioritize profits over patients. To demonstrate this, I will cite specific drug pricing examples, but I'm going to also talk about the way Big Pharma does business, the way they use power and influence to really do whatever they want with drug pricing. Let's begin with the true story of a young couple and their young daughter, Isla, who was diagnosed with toxoplasmosis, a severe infection, a devastating infection that is only treated by pyrimethamine. Pyrimethamine, not a new drug, a drug that was invented in 1953 and branded as Daraprim. Unfortunately for Isla, drug pirate Martin Shkreli had acquired the rights to this drug previously, and he jacked the price up 5,000% literally overnight to $750 per pill. And that meant that Isla's treatment was going to cost her parents $360,000. Now, I decided to do the right thing and take the same chemical that's in Daraprim and to make an alternative for patients like Isla, and to make ours available at 99 cents per pill. And by the way, we still made a very nice profit, even at 99 cents per pill. What was Big Pharma's reaction when I did this? Was there appreciation? No. Bio, the lobbying arm of Big Pharma, a group that Mr. Greenwood leads, specifically wrote letters to the FDA in support of restricting us from being able to take care of patients like Isla. That is the truth. Even for a 60-year-old off-patent drug, no research and development, the reality is that when you get in the way of Big Pharma, they will snap at you. Another powerful example is a drug approved also in 1953 by FDA called EDTA. It's used to treat lead poisoning. The drug costs about $10 to make. It's historically sold for $1,000, believe it or not, generating a pretty incredible profit. I'm sure the Purple Turtle would love to sell beer and make that kind of profit, wouldn't you think? Recently, as you may know, there was a lead poisoning outbreak in a very poor city in the United States called Flint, Michigan. In a time of need, Big Pharma, the Big Pharma company that owned the rights to this drug, didn't offer to send drug for free. They didn't even offer to keep the drug priced at $1,000. What they did was increase the price to $27,000. That's the truth. To be clear, though, I believe in profit. I run a for-profit company. But everything is a question of degree. And I believe that just because you can do something in this world, it doesn't mean that you should do something. That is not the way Big Pharma thinks. In these cases, and by the way, there are hundreds and hundreds more just like them, Big Pharma jacks up prices because there isn't competition and there isn't a low-cost option for patients. Through their actions, we see greed. We see a desire to maximize profits, regardless of the plight of patients. When it comes to old off-patent drugs, these are old drugs, by the way, Big Pharma is able to do something that no other industry in the history of mankind has been able to do, and that is to take old things that are off patent and raise their prices tremendously, even cause prices to skyrocket. But by the way, when it comes to new drugs, patients don't get a break, and the sick don't get access. Sovaldi and Harvoni, we mentioned Gilead, two new drugs that literally cure hepatitis C in most cases, which are owned by Gilead, decided to price these drugs at more than $80,000. And this is why the vast majority of the more than 3.2 million Americans that suffer from this disease continue to suffer from this dreadful condition. They don't have access. And two U.S. senators who investigated this, a Republican and a Democrat, concluded, quote, "It was always Gilead's plan to maximize revenue, and affordability and accessibility was an afterthought," end quote. So regardless of whether a drug is old or new, to Big Pharma, it's profits before patients. And there are hundreds and hundreds of new drugs that are outrageously priced. I just don't have time to cite them all. Just know that when Big Pharma flips a coin, it's heads they win and tails they win. And for the patients who have to pay the bill, they will extract as much money from you as they possibly can. The other side may want to blame insurance companies, but I'm here to tell you that the prices of many of these drugs are outrageously priced. They're out of control, regardless of who is paying. Let's discuss, though, how we arrived at this place. Because over many decades, Big Pharma has invested heavily to make the system work in its favor. They bought political power and access, spending in 2015 more than $240 million on lobbying, with 1,400 full-time paid lobbyists. That's more than 2 full-time lobbyists hitting the halls of Congress for every single member of Congress. Big Pharma also influences regulatory authorities from the top to the bottom. Prior to taking the helm at the FDA, the current commissioner, Dr. Robert Califf, had received millions and millions of dollars in research and consulting money from more than 23 big pharma companies. Dr. Califf was also a defender of Merck's drug Vioxx, which was reported to have caused more than 50,000 heart attacks before it was finally pulled from the market. In spite of this, though, the United States Senate overwhelmingly approved of Dr. Califf's appointment, 89-4. The symbiotic relationship, though, between Big Pharma and FDA exists with lower-level employees as well, and this was demonstrated by a recent study which showed that over a 10-year period, more than half of FDA's hematology and oncology medical reviewers had left FDA and gained employment in Big Pharma. Once Big Pharma has a grip on politicians and the FDA, they lobby for a drug approval process gauntlet that they can only afford, because it now costs more than $2 billion in a decade of time to get a drug approved. Who benefits from this? Only Big Pharma. Once the drug approval gauntlet is in place and smaller companies are disadvantaged, Big Pharma is more easily able to acquire them. In fact, all of the drugs that we've discussed tonight were actually acquired by Big Pharma. They were not invented by Big Pharma. Smaller companies took the risk, they made the investment, and they proved the science. Dr. Powell sold Aerotherapeutics to UK giant AstraZeneca, but he was not alone, because in the first 9 months of 2015, there were over 950 similar transactions worth $350 billion. Once Big Pharma swallows up the little guys, they focus on another core competency, and that's marketing. According to the Washington Post, 9 of the 10 biggest Big Pharma companies spent more money on sales and marketing than research and development. 2013, Johnson & Johnson, $17.5 billion on sales and marketing, $8.2 billion in research and development. Finally, Big Pharma eliminates competition. They pay for delay. They will pay generics companies to not enter the market and lower costs. They prevent low-cost copies of the more than 7,500 generic drugs like Daraprim. And then they evergreen their patents. They make small little tweaks to their patents in order to get the FDA to give them new monopoly market power. All of these actions, the way Big Pharma prices drugs and the way they conduct business, demonstrate a priority of profits before patients. Now, I believe in capitalism. I believe in profits and well-functioning markets with competition and rational pricing. Big Pharma is not interested in competition or capitalism, but monopoly control and profiteering. Scottish philosopher Adam Smith warned about this behavior hundreds of years ago when he wrote The Wealth of Nations. He wrote, quote, "To widen the market and to narrow the competition is always the interest of the dealers, which is an order of men whose interest is never exactly the same with that of the public, who have generally an interest to deceive and even oppress the public, and who accordingly have, on many occasions, both deceived it and oppressed it. A more modern group of philosophers, one of my favorites, Depeche Mode, also wrote about this kind of greed. They said the grabbing hands grab all they can, all for themselves, after all. The grabbing hands grab all they can because everything counts in large amounts. This is the big pharma way, large amounts, profits before patients. Ladies and gentlemen, this debate affects all of us and everyone we love. I ask you to not only support the motion, but to support access and affordability and competition. You can start tonight by voting for the motion. Thank you.